The New York Rangers re-sign impending restricted free agent Zac Jones. We discuss why this is a solid signing for the Blueshirts, and we also take a look at what kind of a role we can expect Zac Jones to play for the Rangers in this upcoming season. All that and much more on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back, Blueshirts fans, to episode number 852 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So I figure we might as well just go ahead and jump right into it here today. The big news for the Rangers being that Zac Jones, 22-year-old left defenseman, re-upping with the team. He was an impending restricted free agent. He signs a 2-year contract that carries an annual cap hit of $812,500. It is a one-way contract. More on that in a little bit and what that might mean for the Rangers and for Zac Jones. But to take it from the top here, a little bit of a recap on how Zac Jones became a Ranger, everything he's done basically since the Rangers have drafted him. And just going to look at everything that he's done thus far and try to figure out, where he's going in his career as a member of the Blueshirts. But to recap for everybody, Zac Jones, a former third-round pick by the Rangers back in 2019, went number 68 overall. He's played in parts of all of the past 3 seasons with the New York Rangers. If we combine all of his stats from all the 3 seasons that he's played with the Rangers, just 38 games for Zac Jones, and I thought that maybe it might be a little bit higher than that. I was expecting maybe somewhere around, the 50-game mark or something around that area, but no, just 38 games for Zac Jones, so fairly small sample size there. From his first season to his most recent season, last 3 seasons, he has played in 10 games, 12 games, and then 16 games in this past season. But to combine all of the 38 games that he has played for the Rangers, Zac Jones in that time with the Blueshirts, 1 goal, 7 assists. He is a minus 11 in that time. He has averaged 15 minutes and 18 seconds of ice time per night. Set a new career high in games played this past year, as we just covered, with 16 games played. Also a new career high, 15 minutes and 37 seconds of ice time per night in this past season with the Rangers. He's also in his career blocked 37 shots and dished out 17 hits. And I thought his best showing, at least relative to the expectations that were kind of thrown upon Zac Jones when he was coming up with the Rangers, I thought maybe his best season was actually his first. When you consider everything that happened, the circumstances around Zac Jones being promoted there, and just how he played overall. Because you remember when he debuted, he was only 20 years old. And that's pretty young for anybody to make their NHL debut. And he's just a 3rd-round draft pick. It's not like he's one of these super prospects that you have to fast track to the NHL. No, he was only 20 years old. He got his first shot with the Rangers in a 10-game sample toward the end of 3 seasons ago, what turned out to be David Quinn's final season with the New York Rangers, just for some context there. But yeah, in those 10 games, it's not like he set the world on fire or anything like that, but I was just impressed with the confidence and the poise that he seemed to be playing with at that time. There was a situation where Ryan Lindgren got injured, and so that meant that Adam Fox was out there without his usual defense partner. And rather than move everybody up one pairing, what the Rangers chose to do was, dress Zac Jones and just throw him out there on the top pairing with Adam Fox. I don't remember offhand if he played all 10 games with Adam Fox, but I do know that we got at least a bit of a sample of him out there with Adam Fox. And again, given the circumstances, the fact that he's 20 years old, rookie, obviously an experience, being asked to play with Adam Fox on the top pairing, I thought Zac Jones did very well for himself, once again, given those circumstances. And as far as this new contract is concerned and, what my thoughts are of it, being fair for Jones and for the Rangers and everything, we've talked, it's kind of been a theme on here and really just a theme of Ranger hockey going forward. You got all these players with all these big-time contracts, whether we talking about Mika Zibanejad, Adam Fox, Artemi Panarin, Chris Kreider, Jacob Trouba. These guys are all making significant money year in and year out. They got big contracts. And so the way to sort of offset that, you've got to have some guys at or near the bottom of your roster that are making basically the exact opposite of that, close to or at the league minimum. And when you look at this contract that Zac Jones just signed here, he's actually getting a little bit of a pay cut. He's only going to make $1,500 for the next 2 seasons per season. His entry level contract was actually at $925K, so he'll be getting a little bit less than that going forward for the next 2 years. And he's actually going to be a restricted free agent once again when this contract expires. But to me, the price is right. Jones has had his ups and downs in what is obviously a limited sample size with the New York Rangers. There's times where he's looked all right and looks like he's ready for the NHL. There's other times where maybe he's been a little bit shaky out there. One knock on Zac Jones that I know a lot of fans are going to have, and it's one of those things that just kind of is what it is. It's the fact that he is a little bit undersized. We will discuss that in greater detail in a little bit here. But look, this is somebody that you drafted in the 3rd round a couple of years ago, back in 2019. He is making currently only $37,000 more than the league minimum. And that's not bad at all. Again, I think there have been enough positive signs, some flashes from Zac Jones. He's played very well in the AHL as well. I think you're going to want to keep him around, give him another look, and especially at this cost. And it does sound like Zac Jones is on track to be the guy as far as the 6th defenseman is concerned at the start of this upcoming season. But we're going to keep talking about this re-signing by the Rangers from every angle. I'm also going to discuss why I believe this deal, the way that it's structured, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that in just a second. But this deal is essentially, from the Rangers to Zac Jones, a vote of confidence. I'm going to explain why I feel that way and what exactly that means in just a second here. But first, we have to let everybody know, today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it is all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you will be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Motors fit, or eBay Guaranteed Fit rather, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. All right, we just want to go ahead. Thank everybody, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And for the everydayers, you guys that tune in every day, first of all, let me just say thank you so much. Could never thank you enough for that. But definitely stick around for the rest of this week. We're going to be doing some more coaching talk. Obviously, Peter Laviolette set to take over the New York Rangers. Going to talk a little bit about some possible assistant coaches that he might be looking to hire in the coming days and weeks here. We're also going to be doing a crossover episode with Mr. Dan Holme of Locked On Washington Capitals to discuss Peter Laviolette. As we've mentioned, Laviolette's coached a lot of different teams around this league. Want to go straight to the sources, talk to some of the Locked On hosts from some of these other teams, and what were his strengths, what were his weaknesses, why did the team succeed, why did the team fail, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely looking forward to talking to Dan, and we'll move on to some other Locked On hosts as well. Going to be more free agent talk, more draft talk. It's an exciting time in the NHL calendar here. There's some fun things ahead, but that's for the next few episodes. For right now, want to continue talking about Zac Jones, his new contract with the New York Rangers, and the fact that I think this is a vote of confidence from the Rangers to Zac Jones. I think he's going to be given every single opportunity possible to win the 6th defenseman job for the Rangers. It feels like every season, we always, in the offseason, one of the big storylines for this team is always who's the 6th defenseman going to be. We've seen a couple of different names come and go, and, are they going to go with a veteran, or are they going to go with one of the young guys? What's it going to be? And that's obviously still somewhat the case here, although, again, with Zac Jones signing this contract, I got to believe that they are going into this upcoming season fully believing and fully expecting that Zac Jones will find a way to claim that 6th defenseman role. But again, the fact that this is just a one-way contract, to me, implies, once again, this was a vote of confidence by the New York Rangers in Zac Jones. Part of the reason why they're probably feeling good about Zac Jones, I would say, is probably what he did with the Hartford Wolfpack this past season. He had 54 games, did Zac Jones, with the Hartford Wolfpack in the regular season, scored 8 goals, had 23 assists, 31 points in 54 games. He was also a plus 16 in that time. Then another 9 playoff games, 2 goals, 4 assists, and was a plus 3. And, by all accounts, one of the better players on the Hartford Wolfpack. I was able to tune in for some of those playoff games during their run in the Calder Cup playoffs there. And Zac Jones is always on the first line. He's always, at or near the top of the leaderboard in terms of time on the ice with the Hartford Wolfpack. So, he is one of their better players. And I do get the feeling once again that the Rangers, what they've seen out of him with the Wolfpack and also the small sample size that he's had with the Rangers, while that sample size has been far from perfect, he is somebody that's shown enough that I think you want to give him another chance and just see what he can do. And I get the feeling that that's exactly what's going to happen to start this upcoming season here for Zac Jones. He'll probably be in that sixth defenseman role. But it is interesting to think back to the start of this past season because Jones actually did have an opportunity this past season to take the sixth defenseman job and essentially just run with it, and was just really not able to do it. Again, 16 games for Zac Jones. But when the season started, you get a situation where top five defensemen, they're all spoken for. We know, Lindgren Fox, Miller Trouba, and then whoever and Braden Schneider. And as far as, the whoever spot, that was either going to be Zac Jones or Libor Hajek. They were the two players that were on the roster. I'm almost positive, without looking back at the box score, that Zac Jones got the opening night start. He was out there as a sixth defenseman. Jones and Hajek kind of went back and forth. Whichever one was playing better, they went with that player, for a good chunk of the first portions of the season there. But after a while, neither one of them really grabbed the bull by the horns, really took the job and just ran with it and got to a point where it was like, okay, that guy's in the lineup. We're not going to take him out. That never really happened with either Jones or Hajek. And so what ends up happening is Ben Harpur ends up getting an opportunity. And for a while there, he was the sixth defenseman. And then, of course, he traded for Nico Mikkola. He takes over as the sixth defenseman as well. So the Rangers have really had a revolving door there over the past couple of seasons as far as the sixth defenseman is concerned. But I also have to believe, with the trades at the Rangers, all the wheeling and dealing they were doing at or near the deadline this past season, you go out and get Tyler Mott, you get Tarasenko and Mikkola, you go out and get Patrick Kane. The fact that Zac Jones was never included in any of those trades tells me that the Rangers still value him. This is still somebody that we do not want to give away. We still think he can be a good player for our team. We still think he has a bright future in this league. Now, of course, it's also possible that the teams that the Rangers traded with last season, maybe for one reason or another, they weren't really all that interested in Zac Jones. He just wasn't somebody that was very high on their list. But, with the Blues, they ended up trading for Hunter Skinner as part of the deal that sent Tarasenko and Mikkola from the Blues to the Rangers. And so the fact that they did that, Jones is a higher thought of prospect in most circles than Hunter Skinner is. So I get the feeling maybe the Blues were interested and Drury just wouldn't budge as far as giving up Zac Jones. It's possible. Either scenario is possible. But again, I do feel like the Rangers, the fact that Jones, who to me was like one of the quintessential trade chips for the Rangers approaching the deadline this past season, the fact that he's still here and the Rangers did not include him in the deal, either for Tarasenko or for Patrick Kane, that bodes well for his future here. And I think the 1 year or the 2 year one-way contract that he just signed, that also bodes well for his future here. The Rangers still like Zac Jones. They gave him an opportunity in this upcoming season. The other thing I want to mention, though, and I know it's one of those things because Zac Jones is somebody who, we haven't really seen enough of him to really know for sure what the future holds for him. But I do know there will be some people that just take one look at him, his size, and they'll just say, nope, not an NHL defenseman, not going to work, not going to happen. Look, it is something that he has to overcome. I think we can pretty much agree on that. He's listed at 5'11", which, at first glance doesn't really sound that short, but for an NHL defenseman, that is certainly a little bit on the smaller side. He's also listed at 185 pounds. As far as the height, there's not really a whole lot you can do. Maybe he can bulk up a little bit this offseason and come back a little bit stronger and be a little bit stronger on the puck, going forward for this upcoming season. He is just 22 years old, so he's still kind of filling out a little bit. And again, it's just one of those things he's going to have to overcome at some point. I think NHL defenseman, it's certainly to your benefit to be tall and be big and be strong. He can't really do anything about his height, but it's also not like we have never seen, shorter by NHL standard players end up having nice careers for themselves. So hopefully Zac Jones, again, can kind of overcome that and, step up for the Rangers this upcoming season. Because again, I do think they're going to give him every opportunity to take the ball and run with it. We'll see how everything shakes out in training camp and the preseason. But obviously the hope is that Zac Jones can come in and be a steady player for the Rangers on their third pairing. And speaking of the third pairing, that's something we're going to get to in just a second as well. Want to talk a little bit about the Braden Schneider, Zac Jones dynamic because I do like that third pairing for the Rangers. And I feel like that's probably how they will line up on opening night. I think you're looking at Braden Schneider and Zac Jones. I mean, I see no reason whatsoever why Braden Schneider wouldn't be there. And for Zac Jones with this new contract, I think he'll be there as well. So we're going to get to that and some other stuff, including Artemi Panarin's new haircut in just a second here. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling. Wanted to talk a little about the Zac Jones, Braden Schneider dynamic because, again, I do like this pairing. Obviously, they're both very young, and I do think there's a lot of teams in the NHL, if they're being completely honest, they would love to have this Jones and Schneider duo as their third pairing. Schneider already a very strong defenseman for the Rangers. He's only been here for a season and a half, but we talk about guys being given opportunities, taking the bull by the horns, taking the ball and running with it. Use whatever expression or whatever phrase you want to use. But I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Obviously, Braden Schneider came up, through about the midway point of the season 2 years ago and took complete advantage of the opportunity that was given to him. And he's been here ever since. With this pairing or this likely pairing of Jones and Schneider reminds me a little bit of almost like a junior version of Lindgren and Fox. Now, of course, it's a little different because, Lindgren plays the left side, or no, they're on the same side. Lindgren and Fox, left and right, and then you've got Jones and Schneider left and right as well. But I think you guys could probably see where I'm coming from on this. Fox obviously brings you pretty much everything. It brings you a ton of offense, a ton of skill, obviously some excellent passing, kills penalties, plays on the power play. Adam Fox does a great job defending rushes. Pretty much just a do-it-all, ideal defenseman to have on your team. To complement him, you've got Ryan Lindgren. He's giving you the toughness, the old school snarl, the in-your-face kind of hockey that I know Ranger fans certainly like. And it's kind of the same deal with this pairing. And I'm not yet putting Jones and Schneider at the same level as Lindgren and Fox. Let me make that clear right off the bat here. But you can see the similarities here and why I call it a junior version of that pairing. Jones kind of known as a little bit of an offensive defenseman. And then Schneider, I think you'll see him get a few more points this season than we've been seeing him get thus far in his NHL career. But for the most part, somebody known as just a rock solid, mostly stay-at-home defense and a guy who will just clean your clock if he gets the opportunity. He will lay you out. He'll do it clean. But if he gets a chance, if you got your head down, you better watch out when Braden Schneider is on the ice. So an interesting dynamic between the two defensemen here. And I do think that pairing has a very good chance of complementing each other very well and finding some chemistry. They've played together in the past. Braden Schneider, for his part, has played with about 200 different defensemen in the season and a half that he has been up in the NHL. We've seen him with everybody from Nemeth to Braun to Jones. I'd imagine Hayek at one time or another, Mikkola toward the end of this past season, and also in the playoffs. But I do like the idea of putting Jones and Schneider back together, and you roll with them as your third pairing. And there is something else to consider here. We don't know for sure how the Rangers are going to line up for this upcoming season as far as their defense partners are concerned, because we've gotten so used to the top pairing, Lindgren and Fox, the second pairing, Miller and Trouba. Now, for up to me, I would stick with those pairings because I think for the most part they work. I think you've got two sets of partners there that complement each other very, very well. So I'd keep rolling with that, but you never know what this coaching staff is going to do. They might take a look at it and decide, I know there's some Ranger fans that want to see K'Andre Miller with Adam Fox. They think that could be a lot of fun. And, if you do that, then you presumably would have, the two old school snarl defensemen in Lindgren and Trouba. You'd have those two together. You could do that. You could play around with it a little bit, but we don't know for sure. I mean, maybe Laviolette really kind of spreads the wealth, and maybe Zac Jones is up there with Adam Fox again, and you move Lindgren down, and there's all kinds of different options and all different kinds of things you can do here. But again, we're so used, Gerard Gallant very rarely ever messed with his top four defensemen, and I can understand why, because obviously that quartet has been very good for the most part, and those pairings have had success with each other. But you never know for sure how a team is going to line up on opening night and the rest of the season, and I think that's especially true when you've got a new coaching staff in place as well. Also wanted to mention Ben Harpur, because obviously he's still in the mix a little bit here as well. And as far as Jones versus Harpur for the sixth defenseman spot, I think it probably will end up being Zac Jones. I think it probably should end up being Zac Jones. Based on where they both are in their careers, Zac Jones at this point just has far more upside than Ben Harpur does. And I say this as somebody that really liked Ben Harpur last year. I liked what he gave the Rangers as a sixth defenseman. I thought he played, just pretty much mistake-free hockey, played very physical hockey. Love the fact that he goes out there and watches the backs of all of his teammates, which he definitely does. He plays with some snarl as well. But, you can kind of mix and match if you're Laviolette and the coaching staff here. If you have a game where you're expecting some trouble. You're expecting some physicality. Oh, man, we played these guys last year. We got into 3 or 4 fights with them throughout the season. If you've got a game like that, then by all means, put Ben Harpur into the lineup, take Zac Jones out of the lineup, and just kind of roll with that as your lineup for that night. I think you're kind of looking at a situation where even if Zac Jones makes the Rangers, which I believe he will, I'm not so sure that he will or really even needs to play all 82 games. You're going to have Harper spelling him at least every once in a while. And again, it's going to be very interesting, I think, to see how Laviolette and this new coaching staff handles that situation with Jones and with Harper. A little bit of mixing and matching. I wouldn't say just hand the job to Zac Jones or anything like that. But again, I think most fans, I think probably even the Rangers themselves, the front office, the coaching staff, they want to see Zac Jones eventually. Again, there's that expression again, take the bull by the horns and just go with it. Take the job, never look back, be one of those guys that's pretty much going to be in the lineup every single night. And like I said, if anybody gets injured or there's a night where you're expecting a lot of trouble and a lot of physicality and a lot of nastiness, you can then put Ben Harpur into the lineup in place of Zac Jones. One other aspect I definitely want to mention here, kind of a side effect of this resigning Zac Jones rather than, potentially trading him or anything along those lines. The fact also that it's a 1-year contract also adds to what I'm about to say here. But this pretty much means that Nico Mikkola is not going to be back with the Rangers for this upcoming season. He was brought over in the Vladimir Tarasenko deal and was an impending UFA. And I think the smart money, honestly, ever since the trade was made, I think the smart money has always been that Mikkola would be a true rental and that he would walk once free agency starts. Obviously, the Rangers have to save money in certain spots, 6 defensemen being one of them. And Mikkola coming off a deal that paid him $1.9 million per season, you're not going to be able to afford to pay your 6 defensemen that much if you're the Rangers. And that doesn't even account for the fact that Mikkola will probably get a little bit more than that per season going forward. So Mikkola is pretty much gone. I think overall, he did a solid job for the Rangers. Again, they've had a true revolving door as far as the 6 defenseman is concerned. But again, he filled in and I thought was, adequate as the Ranger 6 defenseman. The other thing that I want to mention here, I mentioned that we're going to be talking about different players that get bought out. And I know that Oliver Ekman-Larsson was bought out by the Vancouver Canucks. I never really saw him as a fit for the Rangers. He's somebody that, strong start to his career. It's obviously not gone well recently. That's pretty indicative whenever you've gotten bought out by somebody. But, Ekman-Larsson being bought out, I know there was, a little smattering maybe of Ranger fans on Twitter talking about, maybe, you put him as third pairing and he can come in and do a decent job. That's not going to be happening now that Zac Jones is back in the fold, and nor should I just don't think that that really would have been worth it. The other player that's kind of impacted by this to me is Matthew Robertson, another prospect for the Rangers and somebody that, they've been high on in recent seasons. With Zac Jones re-signing and Ben Harpur in that 7th defenseman role, there doesn't really seem to be much of a path for Matthew Robertson. The one thing that I'll mention there, though, is if you're in a situation where it's training camp in the preseason and Matthew Robertson just blows Zac Jones out of the water, just excels in every way, looks like a just awesome player and a star on the rise, you could always, flip Zac Jones in a trade somewhere else to open up that spot for Matthew Robertson. I don't think the Rangers would do that. I think that'd be a pretty bold move for them to do that. You could even technically trade Ben Harpur and, go with Matthew Robertson and Zac Jones, alternate the two of them in and out of the lineup night by night. But I think, overall the smart money would be on Matthew Robertson, probably starting this upcoming season with the Hartford Wolfpack. But we'll see what happens there. I haven't forgotten about him. I know there's some other Ranger fans haven't forgotten him either. But right now, it seems like he's going to probably be on the outside looking in as far as the opening night lineup next season is concerned. But, again, I like this Zac Jones deal for the Rangers. It's just a shade over the league minimum. Jones has played very well in the AHL. I think he's shown enough with the Rangers in the NHL that you want to get another look at him. You want to give him an honest chance. And I'm hoping the Rangers will give him a decent amount of leash, decent amount of rope this season. Let him kind of sink or swim in that 6 defenseman role. And hopefully, he gets used to being in the lineup far more often than not. His confidence grows. He's got a great defense partner out there with Braden Schneider, assuming the two of them are together. Let's give it a shot here. Let's see what Zac Jones can do this upcoming season. A couple of odds and ends before we call it a day here. Rangers and Flyers rookies are set to play each other twice in September. The Rangers and Flyers have been doing this together last couple of off seasons here. Basically, it's just what it sounds like. You've got Ranger rookies playing up against Flyer rookies. in a couple of games, 2 games to be exact. The first one this season will happen on Friday, September 15th at 7:05. The second one will be Saturday, September 16th. So the following day at 5:05. Both games will be played in the PPL Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's always interesting to watch that. I know in years past they've streamed it on YouTube, and it's not like state of the art production the way MSG is, but it's a legit game. There's fights, there's goals, there's everything that you would see in an NHL game happens, at this camp. And the one year I remember there was just the one camera, and so like it was kind of hard to see, and there weren't any announcers or anything, and the camera would just pan this way and pan that way, and it wasn't always easy to tell what you were looking at, who you were looking at. But for me, you know what? It's still, you get the sights and sounds of Rangers hockey. They're out there rocking the Rangers sweaters. So I am still very much looking forward to watching that. Hopefully they broadcast it in one way or another. They stream it on YouTube or whatever it might be. Very much looking forward to seeing the Ranger rookies in action. It'll be our first taste of Ranger hockey, some form of Ranger hockey for this upcoming season. And like I said, mid-September can't come soon enough. Definitely looking forward to that. The other thing I wanted to mention here, Artemi Panarin apparently got a haircut, apparently just shaved his head. I was a little bit skeptical at first because, you see a photo circulating on social media, and you know how it is. I mean, people have a lot of time on their hands, and, they'll play around with Photoshop or whatever it might be. So I wasn't so sure that it was real. But at this point, I mean, I've seen like 3 or 4 different pictures of Artemi Panarin with a shaved head. No real explanation for why he did it yet. Maybe he just wanted a haircut, or maybe he's a little bit bummed about his playoff performance last season. We know how superstitious these guys can all be. We as fans are sometimes superstitious, so maybe he's looking for a fresh start coming into this next season, and that's his way of kind of signifying that. And then finally, I just wanted to mention Henrik Lundqvist's documentary Open Heart also premiered. Not sure if anybody got to one of the screenings. If you did, definitely let me know how it was. I'm hoping sooner or later I can have the opportunity to watch that, but I'd have to imagine it would have to be a great documentary. So hopefully, like I said, I can eventually watch that at some point. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is at @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.